Hello, this is Tom from Never Center. I want to show you in this video what we've added new in Pixelmash in version 1.0.11. This is the first version that we released on Steam, and now it's on our website and coming to the Mac App Store. One of the first things that you might notice if you're someone who's bought it from our website at nevercenter.com is now we don't show the registration serial unless you click this button anymore. So there have been several people who have wanted to stream it, and they were afraid that it was going to show their registration serial if this startup screen came up or from the About dialog. So anyway, that's a handy thing for anybody who wants to stream a pixel art session. They don't have to worry about their registration serial showing anymore. So that's the first thing. Let me just start a new project to get this going. Let's do this at 64 by 64 with underlying resolution of 640 by 640. Let's turn the grid on and off so you can see what resolution it's displaying at. The first thing, you'll notice that there's a couple more tools up here. One of these is the pencil tool. So if I click on this, what this is doing is this is automatically painting at the radius basically that will be a 1 pixel width line at the current pixelized resolution. So if I turn on high res mode, you can see right now it's painting at this pixelized width, or this high res width, which corresponds, if I zoom in, you can see it's basically the width of 1 pixel, so that when I pixelize it, it will look like that. And an interesting thing about this is if I change the pixelized resolution, so you can see if I down res this, it's not drawing at 1 width pixel because it's now much smaller than 1 pixel with those original lines that I drew. But if I draw a new line, it will draw that at a single pixel width. So anyway, this doesn't work well if you're going to be changing the resolution of your document, but it can be handy. Basically, if you want to draw things that look like 1 pixel width, but then you want to transform them while leaving it at this pixel resolution. So I can still rotate and translate this, and it will still maintain basically that 1 pixel resolution. But anyway, it can be handy. You could do that before, if you were using the brush tool, then you sized it down to be approximately the right size. But with the pencil tool, it will just always paint at that radius, and that can be really handy. And then the next tool, well, let me just make a shape here. The next tool is something that you'd be familiar with, the fill tool, where if you draw an outline around something, you just click and can fill it with whatever color. And there's also some handy shortcuts that we've added. So say I'm using the pencil tool. Let's draw on a new layer here. Let's turn off this old layer. If I'm just using the pencil tool and I draw something, some shape like this, if I then hold Command Shift or Control Shift on Windows and click, even while I'm in the pencil tool, it will then do a fill. So it can be, I can just paint and then do my Command Shift or Control Shift and click to fill. So it gives you a lot more options for drawing shapes before you just had that single paintbrush tool. So those are the main tool additions. Now let's, we also updated some shortcuts. So like with the brush tool, before you just hold down Command or Control and then scroll to resize the brush, or you could just zoom in and that would effectively resize the brush. We also added keyboard shortcuts that a lot of people are used to from Photoshop and other tools, where you can use the square bracket tools to change the shortcuts or to change the radius of that. And we updated a few more, like the color picker is now on I, which is more compatible with international keyboards, non-English American keyboards, and also more standard with other drawing apps. And we put the color palettes, color picker, I guess before was on C, but add and remove from color palette, those were on tilde before, which was difficult for some international keyboards, and now those are on C. So that will make that easier for a lot of people. The painting speed in general actually is improved also. So before, let me just go into high res mode. I'm going to turn off the grid. Before, if you zoomed in and you painted around, you could see it would sometimes paint disconnected circles. Now it always paints a continuous line, and anyway, it's a lot smoother. And so particularly for people with older computers, that will be very handy and give you better results. Another thing that we've added with painting, and this works in all of the brush tools, including the paint, or the brush tool, the mask brush tool, and the pencil tool, is the ability to do straight lines. So I'm going to turn this grid back on. So now if I right click, it will drop an anchor point, and then I click again and it draws a straight line between those 2 points. So if I do this with the brush tool with a thick radius, I right click to set an anchor point, and I click again and it does a thick line. And I can keep right clicking, so I was doing right click then left click. If I right click to set an anchor point, then right click again, it lets me continue this line, and I can do that until I either left click or hit escape. And like I said, that also works with the mask brush tool. So now if I right click, for those who don't know what the mask brush tool is, let me do another layer here. So say I paint just regular paint in red. Now I'm going to do my masked brush tool in black, but I want to do a straight line, so I right click and then drag it over here and click again. It will only paint on the pixels that I've already done, but it will do that straight line. And this works also with the erase brush. So if I right click and click again, it's erasing that straight line. So anyway, that right click is kind of a handy way to be able to get straight lines in all those various tools, and this makes it easier to to paint geometric shapes. Now there's another interesting thing that we've added, which is I've got this. Before you could this document is in high resolution, and it pixelizes it in real time. Let me just sort of make this more, I don't know, regular looking. So this is the high resolution version, and this is the pixelized version. And let me paint a second layer in black, and let me use the brush tool. I'll just do it something like a little plus sign. Anyway, again, if I go, there's the high resolution and the pixelized version. Before we had it so that you could bake the entire document to be just this pixelized lower res version, but you couldn't do that per layer. And now you can do that per layer. So I can bake just the layer resolution and the effects if there are effects applied. So now when I go into the high res one, you can see, let me turn off this grid. You can see this layer that I baked, it just stays at that, the pixelized resolution. So like when I translate this around in pixelized mode, you can see it's retaining its exact pixels, whereas this high res one, as I move it around, since it's repixelizing it, and I'm actually moving around a high resolution thing, it's not maintaining the exact pixels. And sometimes you want a layer where you can paint very exact pixels and translate part of it, move it up or down, and it will retain that exact pixel thing. So this layer is actually it's actually a 64 by 64 pixel layer, just scaled up to perfectly fit this document, whereas this one is actually that higher res 640 by 640. Anyway, if that doesn't make sense, try it out, mess around with it, you'll figure it out. But you can also, in addition to baking a layer down to that, let me just delete this layer and go back into pixelized mode. You can also just, before you could only create new high-res layers, so I just clicked this plus button right here and that made a new high-res layer, so painting in that, you can see it's high resolution. But what we've got now also is going back into pixelized mode. If I come to edit, I can do new layer at the pixelized resolution, and that will automatically create this layer to be at whatever I've pixelized it to, 64 by 64 here. So again, when I come and move this around, you can see or go into high res mode, it's actually a low res layer at the pixelized resolution, so it will retain the exact pixels even when I translate it. And this, when I've baked it, basically when I've got it in that lower resolution one, it's not going to look as nice when I rotate it, because it's I'm rotating this effectively a lower resolution layer, and it doesn't work nice for that. So there may be times when you want to incorporate both high res layers and low res layers, and you can use them for whatever each type of layer is good for, and you'll discover that. So those are the main things. We hope that you'll enjoy them and find many uses for them, and there's a lot more to come. Next, we're specifically going to be tackling animation. We've received a lot of requests for animation, to add in between layers or frames to automatically interpolate, so you don't have to set everything frame by frame. And we're also going to add some more autonomy, so one layer can animate just its transforms, another layer can animate its visibility, and also a very highly requested thing, so that layers can automatically have a separate image per frame of the animation. So those will be coming in the next update, but we're moving very quickly, as fast as we can, and we hope you'll enjoy the things in this update. Thanks.